My dear people of Ambazonia, accept liberation greetings from me, Comrade John Akuro, this Saturday, which is the 12th day of October in the year 2024. I apologize. In my last outing, I talked about returning the next day, and I think I did mix up the days. But all the same, the important thing is that I am here. My people of Amazonia, today will mark the 40th day that the génocidaire, nonagenian president of La République du Cameroun, Mr. Paul Biya, is still nowhere to be found. As I speak now, you should note that if by the close of this Saturday you don't hear any announcement in Yaoundé that Mr. Paul Biya has touched down in Yaoundé in any form or shape, then one clear conclusion should be drawn. That either Mr. Paul Biya is now completely vegetable, that his situation has gone so bad that he really can't manage an appearance to play the kind of movies that he played before, or the ultimate has even already happened. I'm sure if you look at the avalanche of press releases from government ministers in Cameroon and compared to what obtained in the past when Mr. Paul Biya actually played played on people's sentiments because he wanted to, raise his popularity and offer himself another opportunity to continue to stay at the helm of power in that country, then you will agree with me that at no moment did government ministers in La République du Cameroun find it necessary to come out with press releases to try and justify exactly why people have to stay calm and wait until Mr. Paul Biya shows up. But today, it is obvious that things have changed. At 91, no one, no one except a dreamer will expect Mr. Paul Biya to be in very top form. And when you look at the contradictions in the press releases, you understand that the people are themselves totally confused. In some quarters, they are totally panicked. Does anyone forget what happened in Gabon when Mr. Omar Bongo, who had ruled that country for 42 years as president, passed? When he died, France played this kind of game. France concealed the information, fought tooth and nail to make sure no one anywhere would learn that the worst had happened. And why? Because France needed to work behind the scenes to ensure a kind of transition that would guarantee another Paris touch being brought into the Gabonese capital, Libreville. At that time, they had already worked out everything to make sure a former girlfriend of Mr. Omar Bongo, Madame Rogombe, would become the Speaker of the National Assembly and would be the one to manage the transition. That is how they ended up, that's how Gabon ended up with Ali Bongo. The French made sure that that happened. They did the same thing in Togo, where they ended up installing Faure Gnassingbé as the new president, taking over from his father, who had been in power for 39 years, from Mr. Gnassingbé Eyadema. If you look carefully, you notice that France again, and of course Emmanuel Macron, played this same game in Chad when Idriss Déby Itno was killed at the battlefront and went ahead to install the son, Mahamat Idriss Déby, as president in Chad. The French have never hidden their ambition to make of children of heads of states the successors, to transform French Africa into monarchies. But the problem they have with the situation in Cameroon is that the situation in Cameroon is complicated because Cameroon is not entirely a French colony if you look at it from the perspective that in 1961, two entities came together and formed something called the Federal Republic of Cameroon, involving people with two distinct cultures, English and French. Today, France, in total connivance with La République du Cameroun, and of course it's something that was completed in 1984, thought that they were absorbing the people of the southern Cameroon into La République du Cameroun. Since 2017, a bloody war has been in place. Mr. Biya has not been able to manage the situation. He had, from time immemorial, indicated that he was ready rather for a military option. This military option has not paid off. Mr. Biya continued against all forms of advice from international actors with sound knowledge on how these things end. I was not surprised when I got up this Friday and saw several news organs in La République du Cameroun headlining on Mr. Thibault Nagy, the former U.S. Undersecretary of State in charge of the Bureau of African Affairs at the U.S. State Department. Their frustration that Mr. Thibault Nagy has continued, unabated, relentlessly to point out to La République du Cameroun that Ambazonia will come to be, and that it is in the interest of that country to open up negotiations with the people of Ambazonia. His latest tweet made clear also that something is seriously amiss. My people of Ambazonia, today I want to be bold enough to make a clear declaration that it is not well with Mr. Paul Biya, and I'll give you the strongest evidence yet. Do you know that La République du Cameroon's euro and dollar bonds on the international market are being hurriedly sold by all the holders? You will recall about a month or two ago, I came on this platform and I stated that desperation was eating deep in the veins of La République du Cameroon and the system was no longer able to hold. I made clear that they were selling bonds at 10%. 10%. By far higher than that will happen anywhere on the international market. And this were fast yielding bonds of 3 years, bonds of 5 years, bonds of 10 years, that they were selling at 10% because they needed to raise much needed cash to pay civil servants. The claim they made at the time was that they were raising this money to take care of the internal debt, which amounts today to well over 400 billion CFA francs. They said they had to pay debts like arrears owed to civil servants, family allowances, various forms of allowances, arrears accrued as a result of the non-treatment of career instruments like advances, and money owed to the business community back at home. But since they concluded that deal and got in over 300 billion CFA francs, I have had time to check with the various treasury stations in that country, and especially with the Directorate General of the Treasury, to see how well they have advanced with settling the internal debt. Unfortunately, the pin has not moved. The reason for all that running helter-skelter is simple. It is because La République du Cameroun is running seriously cash-strapped as a result of their genocidal and colonial campaign in the southern Cameroons. So today I want to make this clear. If Mr. Paul Biya were in any form or shape, or were in any state where he could even come out to make a simple, quick declaration, he will do that. Not because he's afraid of Ambazonians, not because he's even afraid of the citizens of La République du Cameroun. Basically, because Mr. Paul Biya will be worried with the economic consequences of the ongoing information circulating everywhere, both on the international media and among major economic entities in the world, that his situation was so precarious and he's even likely dead. Because business hates uncertainty. And so Mr. Paul Biya would at least have come out. Like people would have produced him in one form or the other just to allay these fears. But hell no, they haven't been able to do that because they can't do it. I say they haven't been able to do that because they can't do it. My dear people of Amazonia, you must have noticed today that La République du Cameroon's authorities are operating right now very impetuously. Look at Yaoundé and Douala. The two cities are being quietly militarized to a level not known, at least within the past 5 years. They are making various claims about individuals that they can't identify having found their way into those two cities and are likely to harm the population because they are heavily armed, but they don't tell you where these individuals are coming from. And they have intelligence services that claim to be some of the best in the world. None of them are able to say clearly who these dangerous individuals are. What I want to let each and everyone know is that gradually La République is moving towards the declaration of a full-blown state of emergency. You must have noticed that Human Rights Watch, the Committee to Protect Journalists, and other international instances have roundly condemned a press release issued by Atanga Ponji, banning any form of discussion, either on social media, on television channels, or on radio stations run in the country, or in the newspapers, discussing the state of health of Mr. Paul Biya. In 2004, when Mr. Biya first played this kind of dirty trick, and caused the media to announce that he was likely dead, none of these things happened. I say none of these things happened. The economy of La République du Cameroun is currently receiving a serious hit as we are talking. I mean a serious hit. A lot of investments or a lot of investors that were planning to get into the country after they had been cajoled for years are now screeching seriously on the speed brakes because chaos, they all know, is likely totally inevitable. And when you look at the situation on the ground, the so-called Frankist movement is gaining steam. A lot of talk is going on about people like, oh, right now, this is time that the Frankists should come out. They are now doing a lot of articles to try and burnish the image of Frank Biya. And I followed a very courageous article, we'll call it editorial, on Equinox FM, in which the author or the journalist makes clear that it will be very complicated to have a kind of dynastic succession in La République du Cameroun. And right now, there are a lot of talks going on. People within the system make known to me that the difficulty France is having right now is having to convince the Lamido of Buba, who should by right be the interim president, that's run the transition when and once Biya's incapacity is announced or his death. And so, because he is the first vice president of the Senate, they are finding it very challenging because they also know the appetite of the people from the 3 northern regions for power in that country. This is why I say chaos is likely inevitable, because they are easily able to outmaneuver Mr. Marcel Nyan-Jifenji, who is the Speaker or the President of the Senate, because Nyan-Jifenji himself is in so bad a shape of health that he doesn't even know where he is. If you are not careful, his own death may even be announced before that of Mr. Biya. And so, to get Robert Nkili, who is the second vice president of the Senate, take over, you will have to outmaneuver the Lamido of Buba. And now, how do you convince the Lamido of Buba, who by right should sit when Nyan-Jifenji Marcel will be declared incapable of carrying out that task? Do you need to kill him? Do you need to tell him to say, oh no, although it is my constitutional duty, I have decided to renege on it? No. There is no such provision in the Constitution that says he can just get up and say, I'm not taking up this duty. It is defined. And that is why he held that position. So how will France manipulate around this to ensure that they install Frank Biya or another Betty man at the helm in La République du Cameroun? And now let us talk about how the southern Cameroonians get concerned. My people of Ambazonia, if you are an Ambazonian or a southern Cameroonian, in any hinterlands in La République du Cameroun, I have said this before, I've said it gradually, now it is getting too urgent. Make hay while the sun shines. You have to find your way back to the southern Cameroons or go anywhere else the fastest you can. Because before long, you will be unable to move. Once La République du Cameroun finally gets to that point where they have the lever to officially declare a state of emergency, you will find it difficult to run to safety. Those of you who are still in Yaoundé and Douala and actively investing after I had warned that this kind of thing is likely to happen, you should be thinking seriously on how you are going to protect your investment or at least run to safety. And you don't have a lot of time on your hands. I've pointed out all of this to demonstrate to you that there are serious issues in La République du Cameroun right now. I've told you the one key reason that Mr. Biya would at least have come out to show a sign of life. In the past, Mr. Paul Biya did everything to ensure that he was never out above 40 days. We now see that the Constitution, of course, officially does not say the President of the Republic cannot be out beyond 40 days. But at CRTV and in Cameroon Tribune, over the years, when Mr. Biya was young, this was always discussed, and Mr. Biya himself always made sure he will be out there when it is the 37th or the 38th day. He will at least run back home and spend 2 or 3 days before going back to continue his luxurious stays abroad. But this time, he has been unable to do that. That is why it has become so necessary for the people to be told, to be bullied to understand that there has never existed any such thing as, staying out for more than 40 days, violating any legal principle whatsoever. Now the people are being told that Mr. Paul Biya can even stay out there for the next 3 years and he will be breaking no law. My people of Ambazonia, and this goes especially to our brave hearts, build the bridges you have been building as fast as possible. And to all of us involved in this liberation movement, the time to continue to foster the quest for synergy is now, because opportunity is around the corner and we must not allow it pass us by. My dear people, I will stop here, but again, there are a lot of updates coming in. As soon as I complete the verification process, I will be right back here with the fresh updates. Until then, have a nice time on the JMA Connections.